On today's show, we'll look back at last night's Senators' 2-1 win over the Toronto Maple Leafs, in which a couple bubble players certainly did their best to make an impact.
And we have a SensCentral citizen. It's our good pal, Land of the Rising Sens. He tells us how he became a Sens fan and has a unique X factor for this season.
All that and more on today's Locked On Sens.
I'm Jake Sanderson.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Pillar up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at SensCentral on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. You can find us everywhere you get podcasts. We are free and available on YouTube. Today is Wednesday, September 25th, and if you or anyone you know has seen a Land Rover, please return it to the CTC. Claude Giroux got his car stolen last night?
Brutal news. We got to get our guy, Liams Martian, on the case. The streets hopefully can help solve another case here.
Just brutal news. So please, find this car. We need to do it for G. The guy's done so much for us. Let's make sure he gets it. And by the way, a Land Rover? How's this guy not driving a G-Wagon?
G-Money, G-Wagon. It would be an easy collaboration.
Well, funny enough, I just saw on CTV Ottawa posted the report, and apparently Land Rovers are easy to steal. I don't know that personally.
Ross, that's why I don't have a Land Rover. They're too easy to steal, so I went with something different.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe something a little less expensive, but hey, get him his car back. Pilsy, he was busy on the ice last night. The Sens stars made their debuts. The top line, Tim Stützle, Brady Tkachuk, and Claude Giroux were out there. Jake Sanderson scores the first goal of the season. What were your thoughts on that 2-1 win?
It's so nice watching Jake Sanderson play hockey. I know, obviously, Timmy, Brady, Claude Giroux are out there too, but Jake Sanderson, and he almost had another really nice goal, a good give and go, where he got around one of the Leafs' younger players and taught them a little lesson there when you're covering Sanderson on the point. He just missed it, top shelf though. But yeah, Sanderson looks so good out there. I'm always amazed just watching him skate around. Like, honestly, I could just watch Sandy in warm-up skating and I'd be happy. So it was great to see Jake Sanderson back on the ice. And you think he's trying to uptick those offensive numbers, Ross? I think we might see some more of that this season.
It's going to be awesome. And we said in our ad read for FanDuel recently, let's get on that plus 12,000 to win the Norris. I mean, there's a bit of a reputation factor, I think, when it comes to the voting and the awards. So is it likely? No, but I do think that those are disrespectful odds. Twice as much of a long shot as Thomas Chabot, according to the odds makers, to win the Norris. This guy's the real deal. And more people around the league are going to understand that throughout this season. Also last night, a shorthanded game winner from Zach Ostapchuk. He saw a 4-point night from Jan Yannick the other night, and he said, well, what am I going to do to make an impact? A little, how are you? Steal the puck off of the Leafs defenseman's stick, and he went in and made no mistake. Real nice goal. Nice game for him.
Yeah, the game winner also in a 2-1 game, for the game winner to be a guy that's fighting for a fourth line job and gets a shorthanded goal like that. That was about as nice as it can come if you're Zach Ostapchuk.
And that whole line I thought was really good. I think that what we've been seeing a lot more of for this Ottawa Senators team is cohesiveness in the defensive zone and breaking out together. I thought for a second preseason game, the first for this group in camp, I thought that was a pretty structured performance. Now, I know the Leafs left most of their big talent licking their wounds from Sunday's game, left them back at home. But even though it was a less talented group of Leafs in Ottawa, I felt like Ottawa just like controlled the play, as they kind of should.
Yeah, and Forsberg had a nice game. I mean, the only goal he allowed was a quick shot off a faceoff that he wasn't really ready for. So that's unfortunate. But I mean, for that being the only goal, that wasn't too bad of a performance for Forsberg. So you love to see that. Ross, I'm starting to understand why when we talk to some players, especially kind of everyday NHLers, why they don't like playing in preseason games, because you have all these pigeons trying to make a name for themselves and trying to get under star players' skin to get some shine from their coaches.
Like Pontiac, Holmerberg.
Yeah, that move by Holmberg, the slew foot drag from behind to bring Ridley Gregg down. Now, I know scumbag Leafs fans are cheering because they still have their feelings hurt.
They're planning the parade.
Yeah, because Ridley Gregg scored a goal on an empty net. They're still very sad about that. But like, there's just no place for that kind of play. Like, that guy should get a suspension for sure. And then we had I don't even know how to say his name, Marshall Refi trying to get under Brady's skin, and Brady's like, look, I don't have time for you, just leave me alone, shoe fly. And he kept going after him, and that's one of those where I thought Brady might give him a taste just to let everyone else know, like, I know it's preseason and I know there's a bunch of guys trying to make a name for themselves, but don't come after me. Just leave me alone. Like a message to the rest of the teams that are playing in the preseason. But I'm glad he didn't, because not worth his time.
Yeah, I mean, Refi might not play an NHL game this year, let alone get in a fight with Brady. But there was one fight, and we put the thumbnail up on YouTube, fighting for jobs. Like, Cole Reinhardt's getting a look. He's the only Senator that played in the first two games. And based on the line rushes that we'll get to in a moment, we might see him in tomorrow's game as well. This guy might go 3 for 3, and what an impact. Gets 4 points, 2 goals, 2 assists in the first game, and then gets in a fight standing up for his teammate, fights Holmberg in the second period. So I thought that was good, because nobody really saw what happened. I'm sure at intermission it was brought up, and they saw the video.
It was behind you can't get much dirtier of a play. Behind the play, puck's nowhere near, grab him from behind, and as you're grabbing from behind, slew footing him. Like, just disgusting.
No place in the game for that. So hopefully, and look, I just saw now, we just refreshed Twitter. The second group is on the ice. Ridley Gregg is out there with the second group. So that's very good news. Apparently he had a bit of a headache after the game. So Travis Green said he was held out for precautionary reasons.
And some dental work too, apparently. So that's a tough way to start your preseason off.
If there's one guy that can handle it, though, it's Ridley Gregg. That guy's absolute nails. Also, good news from Group A today. Linus Ullmark was back in net. We know he skated on his own the last couple of days, but this guy is one of the biggest reasons why we have hope for the season. So it's good to know that he is likely, we'll confirm on the show tomorrow, but likely going to start against Buffalo.
And he said himself he's 100% now. So it was just for Sens fans, we have past trauma, guys getting season-ending injuries in preseason or before the regular season even starts. So Sens fans were starting to freak out. It just sounds like he tweaked something. Happens to goalies. It's not a big deal. He's back 100% now. Everybody just calm down. Josh Norris on the ice too. So we can all take a sigh of relief. I think the only kind of question mark now, Ross, is the mythical creature, Artem Zub.
Yes, that is the one question mark. And again, like, Zub's the type of guy, if he gets into the last 2 preseason games, that's enough for me. Like,
that's
if he's 95%, we don't need to know, can Artem Zub get the puck out of his zone? Can he block shots? No. Less is more with Artem Zub. Get him 100% healthy, and we'll deal with what's next from there. Now, we do have the lines from what we expect to be tomorrow's group. Group 1, if you're watching on YouTube. Group 2, I just put in the lineup what last night's roster was. No clue why I still have Philip Roos highlighted. He was underwhelming, to say the least. If you look at those stat boards after the game, he had a lot of negatives and a bit of positives as well. But what we expect to see, if you're going to the game tomorrow night in Ottawa, Josh Norris between Angus Crookshank and Drake Batherson. Shane Pinto getting a look between Noah Gregor and Michael Amadio. Adam Gaudette with Nikolai Kulemin and Zach McEwen. And Jan Yannick is with Cole Reinhardt and Xavier Bourgault. On the back end, we're going to see another opportunity for Thomas Chabot with Carter Yakimchuk, Tyler Clevin with Kalen Addison, Donovan Sabrango with Nicholas Matin-Palo. The only change, Max Gannett not in a top 6 spot on this group. Matin-Palo was the extra for Sunday's game in Toronto, and Tomas Hamara was out there skating with them. We'll get it more into a game day preview tomorrow, but what did you think? Give me a highlighted player from Group 2. Who stood out to you in last night's win? Other than Sanders, like, give me a bubble guy. I don't need to know about the big dogs.
Yeah, well, just quickly, I want to give Ridley Gregg a shout out because he didn't play that long, just the one period, I think, and he had 4 shots on goal. So,
Yeah, my locked on player.
Yeah, he was going really quickly. Unfortunately, didn't see enough out of Boucher. He got 1 shot on goal, but didn't see a whole lot from him. I'll go with the Stapchuk. Like, obviously, guy scores a shorthanded game winner. You got to highlight him, but I thought he looked really good out there, and I think he kind of boosted his stock when it comes to fourth line playing ability.
Am I crazy to think Jeremy Davies is going to play NHL games this year?
No, I don't think you're crazy. I think maybe it would be crazy to say he's going to start the season in the NHL, but I think God forbid there's injuries, but if there is, he's a guy that's probably going to get a good look when call-ups are needed.
Like, I think he could be one of the most top scoring defensemen in the AHL this year and would deserve a couple call-ups to kind of pat him on the back for doing so. So I like Jeremy Davies last night, and people are asking on Twitter, and I'm seeing a lot of talk about Nick Jensen. It's like, there's one hard rule I live by in preseason. It doesn't matter for the vets until the last game. And even then, it doesn't matter until they drop the puck in game 1 of the regular season. So my thoughts on Nick Jensen is I have no new thoughts on Nick Jensen. I think he's going to be a solid, reliable, shutdown type defenseman.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Ross. I was kind of keying in on him, and I didn't love what I saw. The defense wasn't what I was hoping for. And then even when he had moments where flashes of offense, he had one rush down the wing and a backhand chance that he missed the net. So underwhelming, but I agree with your sentiment there.
Yeah, doesn't matter. But yeah, he didn't look amazing. I thought Travis Hamonic was a little bit of everything. Like, he had some good moments last night. Like, he showed that he can still kind of skate, but he also had a couple classic boneheaded mistakes.
He's so fun. Like, he plays the game with so much intensity. I would say too much intensity. Like, sometimes you just got to dial it back a little bit so that you can make simple, easier plays. But yeah, he's hilarious out there.
Okay, no Zoob officially today, as per TSN 1200. Those are the lines. Let us know in the comments who stood out to you in last night's 2-1 win. And we almost have to do a power rankings daily, fourth line center, who's in the mix.
Yeah, we should actually.
It seems like Noah Gregor's now like almost definitely going to play on the wing.
Let's put a poll on Twitter and see how that goes.
Okay, because it's one game each. Unique and Stapchuk, is that kind of the battle going on right now? Or do you think there's a third guy? Like Gaudette's getting a look with McEwen. Is that potentially a fourth line? I'm not sure.
Yeah. I would say it's between Unique, Gaudette, a Stapchuk, and
Halliday?
I was going to say Halliday or Gregor.
Well, I think just because he's playing on the wing with Amadio and they're getting Pinto in the mix, that to me is
likely they're
going
to have him on the wing. Yeah,
at the wing. Like, he's a Parker Kelly replacement in my mind. Like, he's just up and down the ice, speed, a little bit of physicality. So,
True.
I mean, he's got to play better than he did in preseason game 1. But again, if you're over 22 years old, the first preseason game doesn't usually matter that much. Okay, Pilsy, fantastic SensCentral citizen coming up. Sens star. Needs no introduction. It's a face you've definitely seen around the CTC if you head there. So let's get to a great SensCentral citizen. Here is the land of the rising Sens.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. You guys know FanDuel is the official online sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, and it's also North America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same place where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Ross Linus Ullmark is on the ice today for the Ottawa Senators, and that got me thinking, hey, this guy could win the Vezina yet again for the second time, but what are the odds on FanDuel? How about plus 1,500? So if you think Linus Ullmark could get a second Vezina award, then you got to head to FanDuel right now. Check it out, guys, FanDuel.com.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at Farm to Fork. Farm2forkdelivery.ca is where you can taste the Farm to Fork difference. It's premium meat and seafood that's individually vacuum sealed right off of the butcher's table, and then it's frozen for maximum freshness. You get all of that in a bundle with Farm to Fork. Never go hungry and never say, oh, I got all these veggies, but what is going to be the star of my meal? The star is Farm to Fork. It's always there for you, serving Ontario, Quebec, and our good friends up in Nunavut at farmtofork.ca. You can go see all the great bundles they have, whether it's a filet mignon or the BC sockeye salmon for the grill. You know, I'm a big ribeye guy, so you can make sure to go check that out. They've got all the premium meats and seafoods that you need to beat the traffic and never shop at the grocery store. This food will come right to you at your door. Lots of happy customers like our good friend Ian Mendez and Mark Mathot. Now they've got the storefront as well. It's at 1570 Carling, Unit A, between Diamond Storage and the Corral Building. So go check them out there or order online. And if you are ordering online, use promo code LOSB10 for 10% off your first purchase. That's LOSB10 for 10% off your first purchase. And if you go to the store, let them know that LOSP sent you. It's farmtoforkdelivery.ca. Taste the Farm to Fork difference. You will never go back to grocery store meats. All right, here he is, the Sens star himself. We now welcome on this week's SensCentral citizen. He is a very familiar face around the CTC, a half-season ticket holder. It's Land of the Rising Sens. What's up, fella? Welcome on to the show.
Thanks very much, fellas. Look at you guys. You're looking as bright and shiny as ever. Thank you for having me.
We have to keep the morale just as high as we know you keep it each and every time you step into the CTC. I can't believe this is your first time on the show. For people who might not know you, what's your story? How'd you become an Ottawa Senators fan?
Well, it's been a long time coming. I'll just start back a little bit, fair ways back. I'm an old guy, right? So I've got a lot of history. So I've been in Canada since 1988, and my cousin at the time, and I landed here in I landed in Montreal, and then I ended up in Ottawa. So my cousin, who was a couple of years older than me, he was a really big fan. Shout out to Moby, and he was actually a sportscaster at the time as well, and came on, had a little bit of a career with CBC also. Long story short, because I do have this run-on thing going on. Moby was a big fan of the Montreal Canadiens. And I didn't really have any clue. Like I'm from the other side of the planet, right? So I'm from Pakistan. So there's no ice hockey there, guys. I don't know if you noticed it. It's kind of warm, and maybe the rinks are just not existent there.
Yeah.
So I didn't know much about ice hockey at all. So I started watching with him, and of course sports, like who doesn't like sports? And so I was watching with him, and I was like, yeah, this is pretty fun. And then, so part of it was him being a fan of the Montreal Canadiens, and part of it, me realizing very early on that I did not like the Maple Leafs or their way of playing or some of the players. So it wasn't long after I became a fan of the Montreal Canadiens. And then, so this is, as you know, back in the late 80s, early 90s. And then, of course, the Sens, that's the whole thing started. And I never looked back because I just I wanted our own team, right? I mean, I watched it. I liked Montreal. And for lack of a better term, they are probably still my second team, but anytime, my full loyalties are with the Sens. I don't like the Habs now, especially with the recent, all that rhetoric about good old Timmy and stuff like that. I'm like, screw those guys. I yell so loud. I've totally silenced a group of 10, sitting in the row in front of me. So that's my loyalty. That's where it lies. But that's when I became the original fan, because back in the time when they started. So I've been there right from the trenches when everything was just abysmal and we had no chance of making anywhere, and then of course back to the 2007 run, and then further on. And all the players, they're lovable. I really haven't found even one player that I didn't end up liking with the Sens. So that's really, the players are what make a team for me. But it's just been a great run since then. Yeah, since the early 90s.
So speaking of the lovable players, who were some of the early on players for the Sens that allowed you to stick with the Sens? Because I imagine when you start cheering for a team, you're the Habs fan, and then you go to the Sens, you're like, well, first season's not exactly going so great. So how did you end up falling in love with the team after you made the switch?
So, one of my first was Sylvain Turgeon, right? So he because he had a brother that was quite accomplished, and I really wanted him to be that superstar for us as well, right? And he was really quite good, right? So him, and of course, right now, as I'm like literally I had it at the tip of my tongue and I'm drawing a blank. He was number 44. He was an enforcer for us. At the time,
Mike Peluso.
Yeah.
So Peluso
tough
was
guy.
the other dude, man. Like seriously, these guys, like I watched the game because of them so much. Like with like it was just we had a lot of blackouts back in the day. Like you guys weren't even born at the time, probably. But if you were, like you certainly weren't watching the Sens. And I tell you, like access to games was rough.
No podcast, eh?
Yeah, well, no, definitely no podcast, right? What internet? Yeah, so it was. It's just like Ottawa Sun used to have, the game features, whatever, some sort of a story on it. The next day, Citizen did every so often, whatever. But I mean, younger people, like we were drawn to the Ottawa Sun more because of the tabloid style structure and whatnot, right? A little bit easier for us to follow. I think it was a little bit cheaper too, tell you the truth, than the Citizen paper. So yeah, so it was just at the time, like you never had any of this like access that we have right now, the way that we can interact as fans. It's just absolutely, I mean, it's phenomenal, right?
Mike Peluso played one season in Ottawa and has 318 penalty minutes.
Woo! Oh, he was a character.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's amazing itself. And I'm just looking it up right now. He is he's 21st all time in Sens history for most penalty minutes, and he played one season. So you don't mind a little crash and bang in your hockey, hey?
Oh yeah, no, he was a good dude, man. I mean, he was an impact player for sure. And so my aforementioned cousin, Mamobi, and he were actually really good friends. So, that also, like, he had a signed photo of him, this and that, and they would go out together every so often and stuff like that, from what my cousin told me. So, yeah, that also brought some familiarity as well, right?
Hope you're enjoying our conversation with Ali. We'll get right back to it. But first, Pilsy's got a word from one of our favorite sponsors.
Yes, today's episode is also brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for candidates isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites. So join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of the Locked On Senators podcast will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your job more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on the Locked On Senators podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
You had a chance to go there a couple weeks ago. You were at the Travis Green meet and greet. What was that experience like for you?
Man, he's first of all, Ian and Sylvain.
Sylvain.
Sylvain, right? And so they both did a phenomenal job. Ian was very relaxed, and that was very cool to see. I mean, he's got tons of experience. I don't think that being in front of people is a really an issue for him, but he's just so relevant. I have to say that about Ian. He's just his comments are on point. He's there's no pauses, there's nothing. Like, he's just like, his mind is always on the go, kind of like, when you guys start talking, like I really want to compliment you on this as well. And by the way, let me just do a little segue, because like, not enough people understand the value that you guys bring to the Sens brand. Okay, not just as fans, but also like spokespersons for it. You've had a ton of guests that are like exactly what we need to see. The viewing, the content that you provide, even when you don't have guests, the content and what you guys talk about, where you come up with. I'm constantly like in awe at how you guys come up with this stuff on a regular basis that keeps us engaged. And I mean, it's like, it's not like you do one podcast a week, like typically. You guys are pumping out stuff. Like, I don't know, like, is this like a day job? Like, what are you guys even doing other than this? Do you have family? Do you have friends? Or do you just have this?
Your team every day.
Sens fans are our family and friends.
Yeah.
No, you guys are so good for it, man.
We're spending Thanksgiving with our family, coming home for the home opener, Montreal too, right? We love it. Wait, we appreciate the kind words.
Thank you.
It's obviously been great to get a relationship going with you over the last number of years. We were just talking earlier, like, we first met you the first game after COVID. I was like, who's this guy wheeling around with the coolest shirt on in the world? You had all your Sens gear on. And we're like, we need a picture with this guy. And you're like, wait, I listened to the show. And it was just a great moment. And it's been awesome to see you every single time we go back to the CTC. So
I think you were one of the first people we met, even. Like, I have a vivid memory of that. Like, it was our first beer at the home opener at the tent there. So that was awesome.
That's right. Yeah. Us and the Liam Martian at the time. The Liam's Martian, now just Martian. Yeah. The three of us. And then I think there were a couple other people, but I can't remember who was hanging around. But yeah, it's been great, guys. Like, every time I see you, we it's like a familiarity. Like, we're friends, even though we don't like live in the same place and don't see each other very often. This has been great. You guys are solid, absolutely. And when you came on with all of this content, when you came on with your podcast, like, it's like, in my opinion, that was one of the low points. The vibes weren't great, and you guys pushed us, and you guys really brought us up. And with everything that was going on, everybody became engaged. Twitter, I know, because I've been following Twitter for a while, especially since Twitter became alive right around that time. And I would credit both of you for doing your part. There's no doubt about that. So thank you so much for that. But just going back, sorry, I know I did a big tangent, but I wanted to mention that because you guys have a special place with me. So I wanted to make sure that other people also understand.
Well, let's show everybody who's watching on YouTube. You can always find the show on YouTube, free and available. Like, is that not the coolest setup you've ever seen? Look at that jacket and the pants. I mean, look how young we all are.
Yeah, buddy.
We've seen a few losses since then, eh?
Yes, we have, but that's okay. Man. It's all right. You wouldn't tell by the looking at us that we were anticipating anything or were affected by anything, were we?
So good, man. No, that's awesome. We appreciate all that you do as well, and just bringing great energy on social media. Should have already mentioned, you can follow Land of the Rising Sens on Twitter at @SensStar_11. Pilsy, what do you got?
Well, with every SensCentral citizen, we're keeping a tally, so we got to ask you, who is your X Factor player for the Ottawa Senators this season?
So there's a couple. I'm sure that there's a couple. I think
you can list a couple, but you got to give a final answer.
One.
Okay. Well, no, I think because I mean I was contemplating this last night as well. As I was thinking like what was on the ice last night too, and all that. Like, there's some players that you just wanna get behind and root so hard. And I would say Jan Jenik, man. I think that he is somebody that we really, really, really wanted for for Sokolov. Like we wanted Igor to be that person, and for whatever reason, just didn't happen with us. But I don't think that he's going to be one that anybody's going to be able to keep down. I think he's got success coming for him. There's no doubt, but it's just this kid. I mean, seriously, and I mean, we saw, everybody's seen that clip of him taking Zegras out and all that. Yeah, like, okay, fair enough. Like we don't know, right? It's one shot, one clip, and what you don't know much about the guy and all that. I mean, tell you the truth, I'm one of those people that, like, okay, there's a lot of stuff from the juniors that you can look at and stats and all that, but really what it matters is whether they're going to be able to do something at this level. And then so I don't put a lot of weight to what's going on back there. I mean, yeah, it's nice to know, and then it gives you some expectation, but I don't really weigh a lot of that on it. So I didn't like really have a lot of thought process as to what he was going to do. I was curious to see what he would bring, right? And there was not a lot that they talked about during the development days, like the training camp and all that. So I was pleasantly surprised to see what he was able to do in Toronto. And I mean, it wasn't just like one play here and there, one good shift. He was trying to make an impact pretty much every time he was on the ice. Amazing pass, like a ton of work by Zach McEwen, to get into the corner. First of all, chip it in, get into the corner, fight it out. And I've looked at the replay, and I was like, there was like two on him and another third, and then he still got the puck back. But Yannick had to be in that spot, So you can only make a play if there's a receiving end to that play, right? And sure enough, like he was there and didn't waste a second. Like he knew exactly what he was going to do. Like it was like a play that they had worked on together, and possibly they had. But seriously, that was tic-tac-toe in a sense, right? So that was one, and then he was basically making plays from behind the net himself, not just like receiving and all that. So I'm pretty optimistic about him, and I really hope that he can crack that fourth line. If he can play, especially if there is a chemistry to be developed between him and Zach McEwen, like I think that would be kind of neat, if that does happen. I know that there's a lot of people that we would love to see at that entry level sort of line for the Sens, including Reinhardt, including Cruikshank. There's so many.
Chuck had a nice goal last night.
Amazing.
Too.
Like, yeah, talk about presence. I mean, he was being a pest to the guy. He didn't just give up the puck just because, right? Did you see his face on the broadcast after the Leafs player?
Yeah, and the coach gave him a little there pat on the back. After,
then they did a close-up shot of his face, and the dude, poor kid, I mean, he was gonna cry.
He's from Ottawa too, eh? He's got a Finnish name, but I looked. He's actually feel bad for this kid because he had a long road. He actually played Ottawa U. And then went over and played 2 years in Europe, and now he's on an AHL only contract with the Marlies. But so I tweeted, I was like, "Who's player 54?" And then our guy Pat goes, "I went to high school with him, really good guy." I was like, "Now I feel bad. He's an Ottawa guy. We got to look out for our own here." So quick delete, but hey, maybe he's a Sens fan.
Yeah, he was looking out for us there.
He certainly looked like one on that play.
Yeah, here you go, boys.
It almost reminded me of the Igor Sokolov first NHL goal where the guy just slipped on a banana peel and all of a sudden he was in all alone and made no mistake. Final question for me, and again, Land of the Rising Sens. You can find them Senstar_11. We always ask for an X factor. I got you down for Jan Yannick. What a guy. I'm a big fan of that. That's a dark horse pick. Because so far, it's a lot of Nick Jensen, Linus Allmark, Tim Stützle, and now we got Jan Yannick in there as well. Give me a hot take going into this season, whether it's team expectations, player expectations. The floor is yours.
Appreciate that. So, I'm going to go with a player. And I'll go with a player because I think that it's kind of a necessary thing. What I'm hopeful that if for it to become a hot take, I think that this player needs to take just one extra step in his personal development. And that's just a character development thing for me. And this is Ridley Gregg. So I think that Ridley is right there he has a potential, he has a natural desire and the drive to do those things that, like they invigorate us, right? They're sensational, right? But then he just seems like he doesn't want the fame and the fanfare and everything that goes with it, right? But it's almost like if he were able to take that next step, I think that this kid, because if he's getting pushed around, he just seems like, okay, I'm not going to engage, right? But you have to have that fire, and that is partly why somebody like that no-name Leaf guy yesterday that slew-footed him and caused him to have an injury. God forbid it's a worse one, but it's at least it kept him out of the game, right? So these are the sort of the things that, like, he doesn't have to, if he plays a certain way with that high energy and whatnot, if he continues with that, but also starts to have a bit of more of a backbone. And I mean, it's not quite the right word, because he has a backbone. He plays hard and all that. It's not quite the right word for it, but it's in that sort of a sense, as far as I'm concerned, because it's like, for example, like Brady back in the day when we were talking about Brady and who should be captain between him and Shabbat, right? I could see that Brady not only played in that spotlight, but he loved it. He wanted to be in there, and he wanted to be in there for more than one reason, right? And that's just the character that Brady is, and also partly because of who his father and brother are too, right? So he has an older brother and a father to look up to. So hopefully with Ridley, and I mean, I just don't know the kid like so much that, okay, I hope he doesn't like start going to that, but then goes like, just goes overboard, like you want him on the fence. You don't want him off the fence into the dark side, right? Either, but you just want some character developing. And if this kid is able to do that, he's got the hands. We were at the scrimmage. My God, man, like it's at the Gatineau scrimmage just the other day. This kid, like, we picked the right side, thankfully, and this kid was, holy cow. He had it was albeit it was Simpson, but Simpson did a good job, like in that. So he had two shots on him coming up from the I guess from one side. I'll just say it this way, from one side, and then he picked his own rebound and flipped it as he was pretty much past the goal. He flipped it behind him and got it up top, past his shoulder. And I'm like, you don't do that without talent. You don't do that without some foresight, some thought process, right? He was never give up attitude. And I mean, I just hope that that's what does it for him, just the one extra little bit. And I think he's
so how good do you think he's going to be, though? Yeah. Should we say, for the hot take, how about he doubles his point total? He'd have to get 52. You think he can do that?
I don't. I really
that's
hope
spicy. That's spicy.
Yeah, I really hope that he does. And I mean, if he does, I think it's going to come in the later half of the year when he starts to get more and more confident. I think that's when he's going to start to really contribute. But I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that he starts doing it right away. I don't know.
Can I put you down for that, though? Because it looks really good in the graphic.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Ridley Gregg will double his point total. You heard it here first.
Boom. All right. And final question for me here. We know you're a big Sens gear guy. You got the awesome shirt on there. We showed the picture of us meeting you at the home opener. You got stuff in the background on your shelf. Oh, yeah. I know you got a good jersey collection.
I do.
Show the people that are watching on YouTube what you got. Let's see the grand reveal.
Well, I don't have to move very much because this is my bedroom. So
wow. Oh yeah, there it is. How do you know how many jerseys you have, or can you give us an estimate?
So I've got probably about 25 or so. Yeah, I've got some upstairs too. Actually, my kids borrow them because they don't have their own because they're losers. No, I'm just kidding. They're not losers, but they don't have their own jerseys. I guess I still have to buy them for them, so that's fine. Yeah. But no, I've got this was one of my first ones back when I came to Ottawa. Nice. This is our sorry. They're just gonna, I don't know if you guys can see them, but they're basically gonna fall apart. So this was one of my first Shabbat ones, from the Winter Classic.
Yep.
And this was no, not this one. Sorry, I'm just gonna roll.
You're good.
If you're not watching on YouTube, on the back of his shirt, it says Leafs suck as the jersey name with number 11. Gotta shout that out.
As the jersey name on a Hawaiian shirt. Like, it's all time.
Yeah, that is classic.
I gotta show you guys. This was okay. So, boys, I bought this at Zellers. Okay,
Nice.
this was
Sweet.
I think one of their first practice jerseys. So, I ended up buying this at Zellers. It's thin as I don't know if you can see how thin it is. It's like 80s.
Yeah, I can see your whole collection right behind it.
Yeah. So yeah, and all of those are pretty much all my Alfredson jerseys. Like I've tried to get every single one like through his time with the Sens. So I'm pretty sure I've got everything there. Other than the black one with the A on it.
Yep.
I do have it. It's upstairs. It's not in here.
Okay.
This is my favorite of his, the
Yeah,
Royal
the
Sun
classic gold.
Yeah, I've got a Giroux, one of our current ones, the
Reverse retro.
Yep. Yeah. And I've got a Chucky reverse retro in here somewhere. Oh, this is one of my original Alfie ones. Yeah, I mean, it's just, there's Stutzla, there's, so between the core players right now, I only have Shabbat, Kachuk, and Stutzla, and of course, Giroux.
So Sanderson's next.
Sandy, absolutely. I've got my, I've got a ton of T-shirts and everything as well, because if you're a season seed holder. So I started with a jersey first.
Nice, good jersey, yeah.
Right, and then of course I've got guys. I got too much stuff all over.
I believe
all over the place. But the helmet that you see up there, I'm gonna do something with it. I think I'm gonna keep it a little bit of a surprise, but we're gonna. Hopefully, I'll see you guys at the home opener.
Oh, you will.
Certainly will.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was gonna go to the GCP, but the problem is, for me, it's always the transport right after.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah, so I mean, I don't expect them to have like an OC transport level bus with a lowered ramp or anything like that. So I usually just drive myself anyway. But
we'll come see you. We'll come see you for sure.
I'm gonna see you guys there.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, one word answer. Hey, one word answer.
What's that?
Final. What is it? You ready?
It's just more gear.
That's awesome.
One word answer. Land of the Rising Sens at Senstar_11. Playoffs?
Oh, absolutely. 1,000,000%.
1,000,000%.
Woo! 1,000,000%.
Awesome. Well,
somebody asked me this the other day on Twitter.
And you told him exactly that?
I said 1,000,000, 1M%.
1M%. There it is, Sens
1M%.
fans. You got it. 1M%. Sens are in the playoffs, and you know that in that first playoff game, Land of the Rising Sens will be right there in section 219. Say hi to him when you see him at the rink, and we really appreciate you, man. This won't be the last time. We can't thank you enough for coming on, and we look forward to doing this again down the road.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, boys.
Stick taps to SensStar for joining us. Really fun conversation with him. Pilsy, we've got another game day tomorrow at the CTC, and it looks like it's going to be a bit of a lopsided lineup.
Yeah, I mean, the Buffalo Sabres are getting ready for their games over in Munich, so we'll see what kind of lineup they have for the preseason on this side of the pond.
It's going to be interesting to see, and it's another opportunity to fans to head to the CTC. So if you do enjoy the freezing cold tap water, just know that guys like Pilsy and I, we're itching for 15 more days until we can get our hands into the mix. Can't wait for another great week of shows ahead. We've got 2 more planned for you the rest of the week. And then we're planning on a big week coming up into the season. We're going to be joined by some of our favorite recurring guests, from Claire Hanna to Kyle Bukauskas and everybody in between. We're also, I'll save that for down the road. But for today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Pillar, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.